What's up, everybody? How we doing today? Happy Thursday. This is break number 712 BD. We got a 8-box break of Donruss baseball. Donruss baseball, 8-box from fresh case. Here we go. Alright, we're going to go 2-4 off the top. Two, four off the bottom. Save the other 8 boxes for Sunday night. Box number 1. Good luck, everybody. Alright, last stack of the first box. Alright, box number 1. Box number 1, here we go. We got Heston Kjerstad for Baltimore on the foil. Yachty on the Optichrome. Ian Kinsler. Thomas White for the A's. That is Mike Mussina on the purple. That one is 13 of 99. 13 of 99 on the purple. Bryce Matthews. Austin Wells for the Yankees. That's Jackson Chourio on the green Sunburst. Theo Gillen on the foil for Tampa Bay. Trey Savage for Toronto. Evan Carter for Texas. Travis Bazana, that's for Cleveland. There is Juan Marichal for the Giants on the foil. David Shields for Kansas City, red. That is 75 of 99. Behind it is our first redemption. Signature series, not numbered. Number 4 is the card. That's Ben Rice. That's for the Yankees. Ben Rice for the New York Yankees. See if I can find my pen. Tim Hudson for Oakland. Joe Mauer for the Twins. That is Paul Skeens to 99 on the purple. That is 78 of 99. Augustin Ramirez for the Marlins. David Ortiz. We got Albert Pujols, 194 out of 199. Bubba Chandler. That is for Pittsburgh, 3 out of 149. 3 of 149. Ricky Henderson on the Optichrome. Willie Stargell. Albert Pujols. There's Jesus Made for Milwaukee on the foil. Thatcher Hurd for the Yankees. Jake Arrieta for the Cubs. There's Spencer Jones for the Yankees. That is Frank Thomas, the Big Hurt. 95 of 199. We got Slade Caldwell on the Optichrome for the Diamondbacks. Jace Jung for Detroit. Jace Jung. Chris Davis for Baltimore. Sunburst of Jake Peavy for the Padres. That is Matt Shaw for the Cubs. We got a next auto is a purple auto. That one's going to the White Sox. Colson Montgomery. Colson Montgomery on the purple auto. 30 out of 49. 30 of 49. Got Terry Francona on the green Optichrome. That is 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 on the green Optichrome. Behind that is our acetate Bryce Eldridge for the Giants. Bryce Eldridge for the Giants on the acetate. Got Connor Griffin for Pittsburgh on the Marvels. Sunburst of Juan Marichal for the Giants. That's Jared Thomas for Colorado. Jared Thomas for Colorado, 73 of 199. We got Darren Baker. That is Ben Hess on the Diamond Kings for the New York Yankees. Ben Hess for the Yankees. Bryce Cunningham. Bryce Cunningham for the Yankees. That's 230 out of 250. We have Connor Griffin for the Pirates. And then our patch is Christian Moore for the Angels. Christian Moore for the Angels. This patch is not numbered. Bobby Witt Jr. That is Bobby Witt Jr. Unleashed. Foil of Jake Peavy. We have Jackson Chourio for Milwaukee to 79. 6 out of 79. Doc Gooden. That's Nick York for the Pirates. And that is box number 1. Box number 2. It's on YouTube, 614 Ohio Sports Cards on Breaks and Takes 2. Breaks and Takes 2, my friend. You got it, buddy. No problem, my friend. No problem at all. All right, box number 2. Box number 2. Here we go. James Wood on the foil for Washington. Jimmy Rollins on the Optichrome for the Phillies. Kumar Rocker. Marcelo Mayer Unleashed for the Red Sox. That is a purple, 18 out of 99. That is going to the Oakland A's. That's Jacob Wilson. Cooper Pratt for Milwaukee. Cooper Pratt for Milwaukee. Ryan Braun. That is a green sunburst of Kumar Rocker. Foil of J.D. Dix for the Diamondbacks. Malcolm Moore for Texas. Mike Mussina. That is Big Papi David Ortiz on the green sunburst. Eddie Matthews for Atlanta Braves. That's Milwaukee Braves. That's Chase Dollander on the orange. That is Chase Dollander on the orange to 199, 14 of 199 for Colorado. Our next redemption is a base rated prospect optic signature number 104. That is David Shields. David Shields, if I remember, David Shields of Kansas City. Yep, David Shields is Kansas City. Jim Cott from Minnesota. Ryan Sandberg, the Cubs. Sunburst of Cole Young for Seattle. Cam Smith for Houston. Pee Wee Reese for the Dodgers. That is a blue Matt Shaw Cubs. 47 out of 99 on the color match. Blue Marvel. There is Luke Kershaw for Minnesota. That's 122 out of 149. Jeff Bagwell on the Optichrome for Houston. Luis Angel Acuna for the Mets. Dylan Cruz for Washington. That's Carter Holton for Atlanta on the foil. Bubba Chandler for Pittsburgh. Jim Rice for the Red Sox. Cam Smith for Houston. That is a green of Carlos Beltran for the Mets. 12 out of 199. Brock Wilken on the Optichrome. Jacob Wilson for the A's. There's Barry Larkin for Cincinnati. Eddie Matthews on the Sunburst for the Braves. David Shields for Kansas City. That is our next auto. That is Ryan Waldschmidt for the Diamondbacks. Ryan Waldschmidt. James Wood, that is a green to 149, excuse me. 24 of 149 for Washington. Ethan Anderson for Baltimore on the acetate. That's Rhett Lauder for the Cincinnati Reds. Heston Kjerstad on the Sunburst. Charlie Condon red. That is 93 of 99 for the Colorado Rockies. Edgar Martinez for Seattle. That is Tink Hens for the St. Louis Cardinals on the coming attractions. Colt Emerson to 250. 23 out of 250. That is for the Seattle Mariners. That is Cash Mayfield for San Diego. And our patch goes to the New York Yankees. Bert Campaneris on the patch. That is 66 of 99. Bert Campaneris for the Yankees on the patch. There's Cliff Lee for the Phillies. Sasaki on the Unleashed. That is Manny Ramirez for Boston on the foil. Boston Bateman for the Padres to 199. 20 of 199. Chipper Jones. Aaron Judge. And that is box number 2. Box number 3. All right, box number 3. Here we go. Jacob Wilson on the Sunburst. That is Dylan Cruz on the pink to 79. Pink Lasers, 33 of 79. Craig Biggio. That is Juan Marichal for the Giants on the debut Dominance. Debut dominance. This one is not numbered. Rintaro Sasaki. That one is 179 of 250. Ben Hess for the Yankees. Our next patch is Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr. on the patch, not numbered. Not from any specific game. Jordan Lawler for the Diamondbacks. Leo Tavares on the Marvels for the Padres. That's a foil of Ryan Braun, Milwaukee. To 149, we got Prince Fielder, green. That is 29 of 149. Catfish Hunter for Oakland. Joe Mauer for Minnesota. That is Mike Mussina. Mike Mussina for the Yankees on the foil. That is a green Billy Martin to 5. This is 1 out of 5 on the green Billy Martin. We have an auto coming up right behind this. And that is Caleb Lomavita for the Washington Nationals. Caleb Lomavita on the auto. Prince Fielder, Evan Carter, foil of Matt Shaw for the Cubs. That's Seaver King for Washington. Ozzie Smith for the St. Louis Cardinals. That's Aaron Judge. 114 out of 199 on the Unleashed. How about Aaron Judge again? This one is green. 186 out of 199. Behind that is an Optichrome of Don Mattingly for the Yankees. Nolan Ryan. Jim Thome on the bomb squad. There's Bryce Matthews for Houston on the foil. Charlie Condon for Colorado. John Smoltz for the Braves. There's Albert Pujols for St. Louis. That is Kumar Rocker on the green. That is 91 of 199. Colin Hawk on the Optichrome for the Mets. That is Jack Leiter for Texas. Bobby Witt Jr. Unleashed. That is a sunburst of Jim Rice for the Red Sox. Brody Brecht. I believe we have a gold auto. Brody Brecht for Colorado. Our auto signature series. That is Robin Ventura. Gold. 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 on the gold auto, Robin Ventura. That's going to the White Sox. Nice hit for the White Sox. $194 of $199. That is Drew Gilbert for the Mets. Leo Tavares for the Padres on the acetate. That was Nick York on the Marvels for Pittsburgh. Bert Campaneris for the A's on the foil. Jimmy Rollins on the Optichrome. That is Nick York for the Pirates. David Ortiz on the Milestones. That is Jared Thomas for Colorado. That is numbered 146 out of 250. 146 of 250. Nick Kurtz for the A's. Miguel Tejada for Baltimore. That is a green sunburst of Kumar Rocker for Texas. That is Thatcher Hurd for the Yankees on the foil. Levi Sterling for Pittsburgh. Pudge Rodriguez for Texas. That is an unleashed Advance Honeycutt. Box number 4. Box number 4. Alright, this is box number 4, our halfway point. Here we go. Chipper Jones on this Sunburst. That is Catfish Hunter 34 out of 79 on the pink lasers. Bobby Witt Jr. That is Starling Caba for the Miami Marlins on the coming attractions. 107 out of 250. This one is going to the White Sox. That is Braden Montgomery. Christian Moore for the Angels. That is Nick Kurtz for the Oakland A's on the patch. Nick Kurtz for the A's. This one is not numbered also. Doc Gooden. There's Ryan Sandberg on the milestones. Jim Rice on the foil for the Red Sox. That is 193 of 199. That's Roman Anthony on the orange for the Red Sox. Jake Arrieta for the Cubs. Dylan Cruz, Washington. Cam Smith for Houston, foil. Roman Anthony for the Red Sox. That's Jace Jung for Detroit. Sasaki on the Unleashed. That is Cliff Lee on the green. That is 188 out of 199. Behind that we have Luke Keyshaw on the Optichrome. Luke Keyshaw from Minnesota. Ian Kinsler. Aaron Judge Marvel. That is Cliff Lee on the Sunburst. Dylan Head for Miami. Slade Caldwell on the on-card auto for Arizona. Slade Caldwell on card. This one is not numbered. Nice hit for the Diamondbacks. Aaron Gordon on the pink lasers to 79. 4 of 79. Bryce Rainier for Detroit on the acetate. Cam Smith on the bomb squad. That is Jacob Wilson on the foil for the Oakland A's. Another green to 5. This one is Manny Ramirez. 1 out of 5. 1 out of 5. Behind that is Braylon Doty. Braylon Doty on the auto for Cleveland. Not numbered. David Ortiz. We got Connor Griffin for the Pirates. On the Sunburst, that is Tyson Neighbors for San Diego. Carson Williams for Tampa Bay. Willie Stargell. That is a red Yadi Molina. 9 out of 99 on the red. That is a nice color match for the Cardinals. On the artist proof for the Reds, we got Deion Sanders to 25. 21 of 25 on the artist proof. Nice hit for the Reds. Optichrome of Alex Gordon for Kansas City. Darren Baker, Washington. Tommy White, Oakland. That is Kumar Rocker on the foil. Jim Palmer, Optichrome. Adam Wainwright. Chris Davis. We have a blue of Trey Savage for Toronto. 97 of 149. 97 of 149, Trey Savage. Brock Wilken for Milwaukee. Andrew Walters for Cleveland. That is Big Up Poppy on the green Sunburst. Foil of Trey Savage again for Toronto. Dalton Rushing for the Dodgers. Jacob Wilson. Sorry, that's Tim Hudson. I don't know where I got Jacob Wilson, guys. Joe Morgan, that's on the green Sunburst. And that is box number 4. All right. Second 4 boxes, second half, here we go. After 4.5 innings. Tim Hudson and Jacob Wilson, same person, blah. Okay. One's a pitcher, one's not. But okay. Oh, dude. I needed that. Thanks, blah. Looks like we had another gold coming. Possible gold to 10. And we got a Pandora. We got a regular Pandora. That might be an auto. Pandora auto to 25 possible. That would be cool. All right, here we go. Box number 5. That is Dylan Cruz. Chase Dolander. That is Chase Burns for Cincinnati. Trey Morgan for Tampa Bay. Andrew Jones. That is Gerangelo Cinchte for Seattle. That's Dylan Head on the green. 123 of 199. That's for Miami. Chase DeLauder for Cleveland on the Optichrome. Dustin Pedroia. Bobby Witt Jr. Marvels. Chipper Jones on the Sunburst. Spencer Jones for the Yankees. I believe this is an auto. How about Nick Kurtz on the auto for the Oakland A's? That's nice. Optichrome Pandora auto to 25. 13 out of 25 for the A's. Nick Kurtz. Nice hit. 16 out of 25 would have been better for the number match, but we'll definitely take that for the A's. Nice hit, A's. I think our gold is right here. Gold right here behind these next first few cards. That is Jim Cott. Jim Cott. That is 8 out of 10 on the gold Optichrome. Gold Optichrome, 8 out of 10. Jim Cott for the Minnesota Twinkies. Behind that is Jacob Mizrowski for Milwaukee on the acetate. Dalton Rushing for the Dodgers on the bomb squad. Adam Wainwright on the foil. Optichrome of David Ortiz. Robin Ventura. There's Nick Kurtz on the Marvels. Ken Griffey Jr. 3 out of 25 on the foil green. Nice hit for the Reds. Nice hit for the Reds. Nick Kurtz is also Jacob Wilson. Shut up, blah. Chase Burns for Cincinnati. See, I make one mistake and blah can't let it go. Pedro Martinez. That is Diamond Marvels of Kumar Rocker on the green Sunburst. Billy Mick for Minnesota. Billy Mick again. A Mick. Oh my God. Miguel Tejada. That is Luis Angel Acuna. Jim Rice for Boston on the Sunburst. Colson Montgomery on the green to 149. 42 of 149 for the White Sox. Nick York for Pittsburgh. We have a nice Noble Mayer. Noble Mayer for the Miami Marlins on the coming attractions. That is 227 out of 250 as rated prospect Andrew Walters for Cleveland. There's Kendall George for the Dodgers, and our next patch goes to the Minnesota Twinkies. Minnesota Twins, Chuck Knobloch. Chuck Knobloch. There's Pablo Sandoval, the Panda Bear. Don Mattingly on the Milestones. Donnie Baseball. Andrew Walters on the foil for Cleveland. To 79, Kellen Lindsey for the Dodgers. Kellen Lindsey to 79 at 65 of 79. There's Prince Fielder for Milwaukee. Cliff Lee for the Phillies. Is that a black? Okay, that is a black laser coming. And to 39, Tim Hudson on the foil. David Shields on the black laser. And our next auto is Welbin Francesca. Welbin Francesca for the Cleveland Guardians. This one is not numbered. David Shields for Kansas City. 32 out of 39 on the black lasers. Ivan Rodriguez. James Tibbs for the Giants. That is Thatcher Hurd for the Yankees on the Sunburst. Braylon Doty for the Cleveland Guardians. Gold. Darren Baker gold for Washington. Nope, this is orange. My apologies. 1 out of 199. I thought it was gold when I first looked at it. The light got me to 199. Behind that to 199, 99. 78 of 99. We got Prince Fielder on the red bomb squad. Bobby Witt Jr. to 250. That is 94 of 250. Willie Stargell on the Optichrome. And that is box number 5. Box number 5. Box number 6. Got another black laser to 39 coming. All right, box number 6. Here we go. Colt Keith for Detroit. James Wood for Washington. Sunburst of Cliff Lee. That's for the Phillies. We got Rhett Lauder red to 99. 81 of 99. Terry Francona for Boston. That is Greetings from Houston. That is Walker Janke. Walker Janke for Houston. 117 out of 149. That is Juan Marichal for the Giants. Walker Janke for Houston on the optic. That is Malcolm Moore for Texas on the jersey. Malcolm Moore for Texas. Jake Bloss. David Ortiz green sunburst for the Red Sox. That is John Smoltz on the foil. Cooper Pratt for Milwaukee. Cooper Pratt on the black lasers to 39. That's for the Brew Crew. 37 of 39. Lou Gehrig. Unleashed of Chase Dollander. That is Optichrome of Tink Hence for St. Louis. That's a foil of Tink Hence. Owen Cassay for the Cubs. Will Wagner for Toronto. Matt Shaw for the Cubs. We got red, Don Mattingly, 190 out of 250. Malcolm Moore on the Optichrome. Paul Skeens. Gary Sheffield on the Bomb Squad. That is Edgar Martinez on the Sunburst. Tekoa Roby on the Optic. Looks like we have an auto behind this. Signature Series of Yadier Molina. Yadi Molina, not numbered on the auto for the St. Louis Cardinals. Yadi Molina. Orange, Andrew Walters. That is for the Cleveland Guardians. 13 out of 199. Get out. Augustin Ramirez for the Miami Marlins on the acetate. Brooks Robinson on the milestones. Catfish Hunter on the foil. Andrew Walters for Cleveland on the Optichrome. Alex Rodriguez, Paul Skeens Elite Series. That is Will Wagner for Toronto. That is 142 out of 250. Chase DeLauder for Cleveland. Johnny Bench. Milestone Sunburst Green of Joe Morgan. foil of Walker Jenke for Houston. That is Griff O'Farrell for Baltimore. Carlos Beltran for the Mets. Kobe Mayo for Baltimore. There is Jack Leiter for Texas. Aaron Judge is orange for the Yankees. The orange Aaron Judge, that is 13 out of 199 in our next auto signature series. That is Riley Cornelio. Riley Cornelio or Cornelio for the Washington Nationals. Not the Commanders block. Nationals. Jim Leland. That's Kirby Puckett on the milestones. Spencer Arrighetti for Houston. 212 out of 250. 212, 250. Tink Hens St. Louis. That's Jero Iriarte for the White Sox. That is Aaron Judge to 199 on the Elite Series. That's Rhett Lauder, 218 out of 250. That's going to Cincinnati. Tim Hudson on the Optichrome. Are we sure it's the Washington Jacob Wilsons? Yes, it is the Washington Jacob Wilsons black. Smart ass. You're on one today, Blah. I'm impressed. Usually you're a little slow. Box number 7. All right, box number 7. Box number 7. All right, that's a sunburst of Zebby Matthews for Minnesota. Zebby Matthews. Kellen Lindsey, that's for the Dodgers. That is 180 out of 199. Jake Bloss for Toronto. That is Charlie Condon on the coming attractions for Colorado. Billy Martin for the Oakland A's, 67 out of 250. Arjun Namala. Our next patch is to 99, and that is Trey Morgan. Trey Morgan for the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay Rays, this one is 37 out of 99. 37 of 99. Lou Gehrig. We got Unleashed of Kumar Rocker. Foil of Paul Skeens. Greg Maddux on the green. That is 124 out of 149. Will Wagner. George Brett. Foil of Theo Gillen for Tampa Bay. Colson Montgomery, White Sox. Paul Skeens. That is Christian Campbell for the Red Sox Unleashed. Josar Gonzalez for the Giants. 103 of 199. Luis Baez on the Optichrome. That is Alex Rodriguez for Texas. That is Yadi for St. Louis on the Elite Series. Sunburst of Connor Norby for Miami. Caleb Lomavita, our first auto. Kalen Culpepper for the Minnesota Twins. Kalen Culpepper for the Twins. Not numbered. To 79, Donnie Baseball. Don Mattingly to 79. 2 out of 79. Ethan Salas for San Diego on the acetate. And then behind that for San Diego is a green sunburst of Leo Tavares for San Diego. Alex Rodriguez for Texas, foil. That is Jim Palmer on the Optichrome. Johnny Bench, Alex Rodriguez on the Bomb Squad. That is a Ricky Henderson red to 250. 105 of 250. Run, Ricky, run. Ryan Sloan for Seattle. That is Kobe Mayo for Baltimore. Cliff Lee for the Phillies on the green sunburst. Foil of Carter Holton for Atlanta. Ryan Waldschmidt. Blah, 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 blah. Will Clark for Texas. Aiden Miller for the Phillies. That's Will Wagner for Toronto on the foil. James Triantos for the Cubs. James Triantos for the Cubs on the purple. That is 49 of 49. Our next auto goes to the Minnesota Twins. That's Billy Amick. Billy Amick for the Twins. Jairo for the White Sox. Brooks for the Orioles. That's Leo Tavares right there, numbered 146 of 199 for the Padres. Brandon Sprout for the Mets. Colt Keith, that is for Detroit. We have Jack Morris to 199, 127 of 199 on the Milestones. James Tibbs to 99, 94 of 99 for the Giants. That's Don Mattingly on the Optichrome. Terry Francona, Paul Skeens Elite Series. That is box number 7. Last box, then we'll do a full recap. Box number 8. If you want to be part of the second half of this case, it'll be done on Sunday afternoon. Sunday afternoon, I'll be doing the second half of this case. We got a gold vinyl 1 of 1. Gold vinyl 1 of 1 coming. That'd be one hell of a way to finish off this break. Good luck to everybody on that gold vinyl. All right, guys, here we go. Last box. That is Frank Thomas on the Sunburst. Owen Cassay for the Cubs. That is 181 out of 199. Frank Thomas. There's a Diamond King of Thomas Sagasi for the St. Louis Cardinals. Mariano Rivera to 250. That is 234 out of 250 for Mo. Bryce Rainier for Detroit. That is Todd Frazier for the Yankees on the patch. Todd Frazier for the Yankees on the patch. Our last patch went to the Yankees. Bucky Dent. We have Charlie Condon on the Unleashed. Foil of Kobe Mayo for Baltimore. Kellen Lindsey for the Dodgers. That is red, 90 of 99. Johnny Mize for the Giants. Colt Keith for Detroit. Will Clark on the foil for the Texas Rangers. That is Rhett Lauder on the Optichrome. Spencer Arrighetti for Houston. Trevor Hoffman, Padres. Reggie Jackson, that is 186 out of 250. 186 out of 250. Kalen Culpepper for Minnesota. Albert Pujols. Green Sunburst of James Tibbs for the Giants. Foil of Sebastian Walcott for Texas. Owen Hall for Detroit. Randy Johnson. Aaron Judge on the Elite Series. In this stack we have a black laser to 39. In the last stack, we have a 1 of 1. Here we go. Foil of J.D. Dix for Arizona. That is Ethan Salas for San Diego. Thomas Sagasi. Spencer Jones for the Yankees. That is a blue 22 out of 149 for Texas. That is Michael Young. Nick Kurtz on the Optichrome for Oakland. Cal Ripken. There's Evan Carter for Texas. Bucky Dent on the Sunburst. Noble Mayer. We have a purple auto. That is Junior Caminero to 25. Junior Caminero to 25 for the Tampa Bay Rays. That is 5 out of 25. 5 of 25 for the Rays. Nice hit for the Rays and Junior Caminero spot. Mike Schmidt on the bomb squad. Our acetate is Aiden Miller for the Phillies. Our black laser, that is Johnny Mize for the Giants. Johnny Mize for the Giants, 23 out of 39. All right, here we go. Tony Olivia for the Twins. Tom Seaver, Mets. Sunburst of Spencer Jones for the Yankees. Blake Burke for Milwaukee. Zebby Matthews. That is Aaron Judge. That is to 25 on the green unleashed. 22 out of 25. There it is, guys. Owen Hall for Detroit on the auto. That's Owen Hall on the auto for Detroit. Unfortunately, that wasn't the gold. I was hoping that we would get a gold vinyl auto, but that is Chase Dollander to 199, 154 out of 199 for Colorado. Alex Gordon on the Optichrome. Connor Norby for Miami. Jackson Chourio, Milwaukee. Johnny Bench on the foil. All right, good luck to everybody. Gold vinyl 1 of 1. It is a rated prospect. Pitcher. Ryan Sloan. Ryan Sloan for the Seattle Mariners. 1 of 1. On the gold vinyl. Nice hit for the Seattle Mariners spot. All right. Clear this off and we will do our full recap. All right, let's get it together. All right, here we go. To 250. Reggie Jackson, Mariano Rivera, Ricky Henderson, Billy Martin, Rhett Lauder, Spencer Arrighetti, Will Wagner, Don Mattingly, Bobby Witt Jr., Andrew Walters, that is Braden Montgomery, Jared Thomas, Rintaro Sasaki, Colt Emerson, and Bryce Cunningham. To 199. Chase Dolander, Owen Cassay, Jack Morris, Leo Tavares, Jazar Gonzalez, Kellen Lindsey, Aaron Judge again, Andrew Walters, Darren Baker, Dylan Head, Cliff Lee, Roman Anthony, Drew Gilbert. That's Kumar Rocker, Aaron Judge, Boston Bateman. That's Carlos Beltran, Chase Dolander, Jared Thomas, Frank Thomas. We got Albert Pujols. To 149, we got Michael Young, Greg Maddux, Juan Marichal, Colson Montgomery, Trey Savage, Prince Fielder, James Wood. We got Luke Keyshaw and Bubba Chandler. To 99, Kellen Lindsey, James Tibbs, Rhett Lauder, Prince Fielder. We have Yadi Molina, Charlie Condon, Matt Shaw, Jacob Wilson, Paul Skeens, David Shields, and Mike Mussina. To 79, we have Don Mattingly, Kellen Lindsey, Alex Gordon, Catfish Hunter, Dylan Cruz, and Jackson Churio. To 49, we have James Triantos. To 39, Johnny Mize, Cooper Pratt, and David Shields. To 25, we have Aaron Judge, Ken Griffey Jr., and Deion Sanders. Gold to 10, we have Jim Cott. To 5, we have Manny Ramirez, Billy Martin, and Terry Francona. On the acetate, Aiden Miller, Ethan Salas, Augustin Ramirez, Jacob Mizrowski, Bryce Rainier, Leo Tavares, Ethan Anderson, Bryce Eldridge. Greetings from Houston, Walker Janke. Juan Marichal on the debut dominance. Coming attraction, Noble Mayer, Charlie Condon, Starling Caba, and Tink Hentz. On the Diamond Kings, we had Ben Hess and Thomas Sagasi. Our patches. These are not numbered. This is Todd Frazier for the Yankees, Malcolm Moore, Texas. We have Chuck Knobloch, Minnesota, Nick Kurtz, Oakland, Bobby Witt Jr., Kansas City, and Christian Moore for the Angels. To 99, Tampa Bay Rays, Trey Morgan, and to 99, Bert Campaneris for the Yankees. Our autographs. Owen Hall for Detroit, William Mick, Minnesota, Kalen Culpepper, Minnesota. We got Riley Cornelio for Washington, Yadi Molina for St. Louis, Robin Francesca for Cleveland. We have Braylon Doty for Cleveland, Caleb Lamovita for Washington, Ryan Waldschmidt for Arizona, David Shields for Kansas City, Ben Rice for the Yankees, Slade Caldwell on the on-card auto for Arizona, Colson Montgomery for Chicago White Sox. That's to 49. To 25, we have Junior Caminero, and then on the Pandora auto, Nick Kurtz for Oakland to 25. We also had a gold auto to 10 of Robin Ventura, Hall of Famer, in my opinion, if he's not in there. And Ryan Sloan, rated prospect, gold vinyl 1 of 1 to finish the break. There you go, my friends. Hope you guys had a good time. Hope to see you next time. Second half of that case is running on Sunday afternoon. Hope to see you there. Have a great day. Peace.